Good afternoon, students, parents, and members of the community. Welcome to Back to School COVID Conversations, presented by the Creative Spaces team of the Halton Youth Initiative. For more information on the Halton Youth Initiative, we have included a link to our website in the chat box. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many people, mainly because we've had to stay away from others in order to protect them and ourselves. Now that we have found safe ways to connect with people, we can try to go back to our normal lives. One normal thing that youth have always been able to rely on is the routine and order that comes with school. However, it was recently announced that going back to school will not be normal. Instead, it will be a safer school environment with many precautions being taken. This is a very good thing for us, but also a big change. Ever since I heard about the new way we will get back to school, I just wanted to talk to someone. I wanted to hear their ideas and opinions on the subject. I'm sure other youth have been feeling the same way, and that is exactly what COVID Conversations is about. We also know that parents have an important role in going back to school, as they need to support their child. Joining in on COVID Conversations is a great way to do this, as you can hear their points of view, as well as other youth perspectives. We also hope that you can join in on the conversation and help us think about the possible future conversations we may need through the brief survey that you can link to in our chat box at the end of the event today. Now, some of our Creative Spaces team members will be asking some questions about back to school and your concerns that come with it. Please acquaint yourself with the blue raise hand feature in Zoom. You can raise your hand to talk by clicking on the participants button on your menu bar and clicking on the blue raise hand icon. Also, if you have any questions throughout our time today, please type them in the chat box, and Siobhan, our HYI coordinator, or one of our youth volunteers will be happy to get back to you. After our conversation today, a blog article will be written. No names will be included, so those who did not attend can get a sense of what our conversation was about, and other members of the community can see how they can help all of us with this new normal. Thank you, and let's get this conversation started.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we're going to turn this over to Victoria with our first question.
So the first question we came up with, I'm also going to send in the chat box, is do you feel safe with the hybrid approach determined by the government? So I know for my school board, I believe we have one class in class, and then we go home for half the day and do the other class online, and then it switches. So how are you guys feeling with that method? If I got it right, I'm honestly not 100% sure.
And what you can do is maybe acquaint yourself with the blue hand raise feature that can be found if you click on your participants button in your lower menu bar. You just click on participants, and you should be able to see a raise hand feature if you want to answer that question. And then 10B, you'll be taking answers, feedback in order. Or if you feel more comfortable sharing your feedback in the chat box, we also have Masha who's monitoring that as well and will be happy to share. So yeah, so again, the question is, do you feel safe with the hybrid approach determined by the government? Example, the online and the in-person approach. So maybe what we can do is firstly direct that to some of our youth, because you're the ones who are going back to school. So what are people feeling about learning in an online fashion and also maybe going back in person to some degree? And there's no right or wrong answers. We're just trying to share.
Yeah, Eden.
So when I first heard about the schedule, I was pretty surprised about the 3-hour thing, because it's a 3-hour block of time. So we would be spending three hours in a classroom, doing one class, which is like double the time of an exam, and usually it's only about 1 hour. It's going to be 3 times this. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing how this unfolds. and how we can get used to this.
That's a really interesting comment. Thanks for the feedback, Aiden. So you're saying that sitting down in class for a period for one chunk of time for 3 hours is a little different for you, and you don't know how that's going to work. Is anyone else feeling the same thing in terms of that? Is it working the same way in your classroom situation? I'm not sure. Or is it shorter?
Yeah, I think for me it's the same amount of time, so it's going to be really different. And I think we have like a 10-15 minute break in between, but that's still like a good chunk of time.
Mm-hmm. So are you feeling like, is it a good thing, a bad thing? What are some of your concerns around that chunk of time in the classroom?
I don't really know yet. I'm just thinking of how it'll go.
Yeah.
Really, we could adapt to it. We probably will, and it could become the new normal for a few months. But I don't know.
Is that something you could foresee as something we call it the new normal, but is that something we could foresee being like something like an ongoing thing? Maybe that is the normal from now on.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. So I'm sensing like some unclarity, like a lot of unclarity, some questions. Tina, oh, I see your hand right now. Oh, sorry, Tandy, did I take away your job from you? See, I need to put my mic on mute. Okay, I'm gonna step back. Tina, you can go, and then I'll put my mic on mute.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, although the 3-hour block of time seems like a long time, and I'm not really the happiest about that, I think that is the best alternative if we do want to do in-person school. I think that having a group of students in a classroom for longer, or just like without having them transition to other courses or other classes and walking along the hallways, is the safest if we do want to return to school in person. I think that it could become the new norm, because I'm honestly not sure how long everything's going to last. Like I think even if we do find a vaccine, I think that we're still going to have social distancing measures in place for quite a bit of time. So I think that, at least for myself, I'm going into grade 11, so it'll probably be the new norm for the rest of my high school career. But
Thank you for sharing, Tina. Yeah, so it could be the new norm. Masha is saying in our chat box that personally believe it will be hard for students to stay focused for such a long period of time, and the class will most likely get restless. Thank you, Masha, for sharing. Is that something that other people are feeling?
Yeah, I do agree with her. And it also is
Oops, I think somebody's mic cut out. I think Faith is kind of on pause, so hopefully Faith will jump back. While we're waiting for Faith to get reconnected, is anyone else feeling that? Like, with such a long period of time, the class will most likely get restless. And is there a way we can maybe assist with that? Maybe does that look like more breaks?
I think that the keeping like how the desks are going to be apart will probably help with that, since it's a lot more difficult to talk to someone. But yeah, I think a few smaller breaks might be needed.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'd like to open this up to the adults, allies, and the parents as well. I know obviously you're not going back to school. We wish, right? Maybe not. But just with this new hybrid approach, as a parent, as a partner in the community, do you have any thoughts or feedback on this as well? You're welcome to share. And in the meantime, while we look for the raised hand, we have Fatima, who said, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Fatima or Fatima. I agree with that. 3 hours is quite a large chunk of time, she says, especially doing it every day for most of the school year. I think it's the best way to have students learn. So thank you, Fatima, for that comment. Okay, thank you. And Faith, I think Tammy, you're monitoring the blue hand, so I'll let you do your stuff.
You can go, Jennifer.
Awesome, thanks, Tammy. As an adult ally and community partner, I agree that the 3 hours will help with the safety side of it. I guess my worry is it is a large chunk of time, and I worry what everyone's going to do after. Like, is after your 3 hours, are you heading home? Do you have somewhere safe and quiet to go after to do your afternoon schooling, or accessing resources? So that's one of my things I think of too, is like, how can we support you guys outside of your 3 hours, and ensuring that you feel supported and connected to the community and to your school somehow. So that's my 2 cents about it. It is a large chunk of time, and you know, I think you guys will adapt. You're very resilient in different things that go on, but yeah, that's a big chunk of time, and just want to make sure you guys feel supported throughout the day.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I think that's a really interesting question you asked. How can we support you guys out of those 3 hours? Any answers for that? Because we have some adults here wanting to really hear from the youth what you're thinking about this. A lot of the time, maybe for me, adults, we talk a lot about, you know, going back to school, the impact on us, whatever, but this is really about your space, because you're the ones who are directly impacted by this. So how do you think, are there ways that adults can support you, whether they be teachers or people in your community or your parents? Any thoughts on that from our youth?
Yeah, Fnan.
Okay, so this information I got was like earlier in the year. This is when second semester of my grade 9 school year was still going on, and I remember one of my teachers, he mentioned that when they're going to do this in like school starts again in September, the principal was talking about this, that school is going to be designed less for like just for tests and less for like, I guess, learning everything. It's going to be more for social, because a lot of kids are having getting a lot of anxiety, getting very depressed from staying at home all the time, right? So I think that when we do go back, the teacher's going to help us by, you know, talking us through strategies on how to, I guess, not only learn better, but also handle the pandemic better on our ends.
Thank you, Afnan, for your feedback on that. I'm also seeing that Armen from the Oakville Public Library says public libraries are a place where some branches will be open for study. We'll have to see you after classes. Armen, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Right now at Oakville Public Library, 5 of our separate branches are open for browsing, for study, for computer access. White Oaks is not one of those branches yet. We're still working out details with the school board, so it will look different at hybrid branches like White Oaks and Clearview. But at the other branches, of course, there's capacity. There's a maximum number of people allowed in the branches at once, but students would be most welcome to come in and use the space right now for up to 90 minutes for using the computer or to study, or just to browse or have a place to be that's safe after class hours. And the situation's obviously fluid, so things may change. It may change from 90 minutes to more. Other branches may come on board as well too. And slowly more services will resume, including in-person programs at some point.
That's awesome. That's great to know. Thanks for sharing, Armen. So it does sound like the library is going to be providing some spaces. So that's a way of support. Awesome. Any questions for our Men Youth or for the Oakville Public Library? Okay. All right, so I guess if we're done with question 1, maybe we can go to question number 2, and I believe Tanvi has that question. I think you're on mute.
I'm having trouble getting to the mute button.
No problem.
Hi, my name is Tanvi. I'm an incoming grade 11, and so the question that I'll be asking is, how might the new health procedures affect your learning, and how can your school help ease the learning curve?
Okay, so how might the new health procedures affect your learning, and how can your school help ease the learning curve? So are we talking about masks here? Like, for example, masks and social distancing? Is that what we're specifically talking about, I think? That's what I think.
Yeah, and I think also like just generally for students who are going online.
Yeah, so this online. I still have to figure out about the online, because I know I'm keeping my student as a parent, my students back, so they're going to be trying out the online learning, and with that, I think I was reading something that says there's like a minimum of 225 minutes to 300 minutes of learning each day, right? So it's not going to look like what was happening before when the pandemic just started, where it was like some Google Classroom assignments and you kind of just do it sort of at your own pace. It seems like this is going to be more structured based on what I've read so far. So I guess for me, as a parent, I'm just trying to figure out, how am I going to keep my kids seated for 4 to 6 hours online while I have to work at home as well. I actually have my son online too. I don't want, sorry for singling you out, Tyler. Are you there? He may be. But I mean, is anybody doing just like the online version of learning, or how does that health procedure affect your learning? And how can your school help ease the learning curve? So for example, let's say you're online. How can they help ease the learning curve for you if you're doing your courses online? Because sometimes it's hard to sit at a computer, I find anyway, for a long amount of time.
One thing that may be useful for some of you guys is trying to create a schedule. So for example, after 30 minutes of work, taking maybe something like a 5-minute break and then working again, so you don't get to, I believe burnout is the right word. Sorry.
Thanks. So I just got I got a comment from Faith too. I don't know if Faith, this is okay for me to share. I don't know, as a trick. She said you can use duct tape in a chair just to sit still. Thanks, Faith. Go ahead, Tanvi. I think there's a blue hand.
Gina?
Yeah, so I think that unfortunately a lot of different learning sort of opportunities or ways to learn, such as like hands-on or maybe co-op, SHISM, different pathways like that, are unfortunately going to be limited. Personally, I'm going into the IB program, and we recently found out that unfortunately the HDSB won't be offering that online. So although I chose to do the online form or like the online version on my form, I have to choose between either discontinuing the IB program or going back in school, which wasn't what I would preferred. So I think that a lot of students are grappling with this sort of decision of whether to go back to school or to maybe discontinue a program that they really want to do, like a SHISM or like a co-op. And yeah, just I think that a lot of students are feeling really behind, especially from having second semester of last year online, and you know, a lot of teachers were still figuring out what's the most effective way to deliver, you know, the lessons like that. And so I think a lot of students, especially those transitioning into high school right now, are feeling really behind. So I think that ways that we can help is just having a lot more like link crew meetings, or having more mentorship, maybe like homework clubs, just stuff within those 3-hour blocks that we're in class, even virtual, that could sort of help the younger students transition.
Good points. Thanks, Tina. Anyone else like to comment on that, the question? Or on what Tina was mentioning?
Personally, me and my younger brother are going online this school year, just like not take a risk. And it's going to be weird, especially like for sciences and stuff, like, are we going to be doing labs in school, or like, are we even going to be doing labs anymore? So it's kind of like really weird in that sense, because it's very different. And it's also like Aiden was saying before in the first question, these 3-hour blocks are going to be a lot. So I think one thing like teachers and schools can do is just to make sure that they're breaking it up, so that students aren't having like an overload and aren't able to actually retain the information. So just to like help out with that.
I agree. And continuing on what Tina said earlier, even for students who aren't moving on to high school, they could have also missed information. For example, at least the teacher at our school was kind enough, and what she did was she decided to teach us geography first, history later. So that means we're going to start history after March break. And since, we weren't at school at March break, we did miss quite a bit of history. So, yeah.
Thank you, Faith. I'm also seeing that Michelle also had a comment. Before we get to your comment, Michelle, Armin, I know you had a question about sports clubs being offered. We're going to get to, we have a upcoming question about extracurriculars, so we'll get to that then. Michelle was saying maybe teachers can encourage breaks between studying too, so students don't end up getting burned out like notifications. And I just wanted to return to what Tina had been saying, because it ties in to one of our upcoming questions about what types of supports will help you with this back to school transition. And Tina, you were mentioning things about homework clubs and peer mentorships. Is that correct? That could be a support? Yeah. Do you have any idea? I mean, it's just like, okay, tell us how to do that now. But do you have any ideas, or does anyone have any ideas, thoughts about maybe how that can be done, or how schools can do this? Does that look like a school doing that, offering a homework club online, or peer mentorship? Does that look like some of our community organizations stepping in and offering some of those services? Do you have any thoughts on that, Tina, or anybody else, about how maybe we do that?
Yeah, actually, I think it would have to be a really good mix between community organizations, schools, even just your peers. One example could be even Creative Spaces group. I think that having like homework clubs where maybe every single week, or even, it could be a special event where we just have a time where students in the community can come on and we can just help out. Also, Big Brothers Big Sisters was an organization that I volunteered with before, and we had like homework clubs. I understand right now it's unfortunately not able to run, but maybe finding ways to transition online with those type of things, and having these like mentor-mentee sort of relationships online or through a virtual platform. I know at my school we have sort of like called like science clinics or math clinics, where teachers will hold sort of help sessions during lunch or after school. So again, finding a way to transition that to a virtual platform, I think, would help a lot.
Great. Yeah, that's a good point. So something a little bit like we're doing here in Creative Spaces. For those of you who don't know what Creative Spaces is, and our guests today, so we're a virtual group that's been meeting since basically the beginning of the pandemic. So our Halton Youth Initiative is a youth-led initiative in Halton. So youth can express their voices on matters that concern them. One of our goals at the beginning of this project, when we were still meeting in person, was opening up spaces in our community, in-person spaces where youth felt safe to hang out, and also just unstructured hangout spaces where youth could get together and feel a part of the community. Now that we're on a virtual online platform, our project had to rethink some things. What does a hangout space, or what does a space look like? So that's what our youth and our creative spaces group kind of looks at and tackles through hosted events like this one, and just getting some of their ideas along with the assistance of some of our valued community partners and adult allies. So when Tina talks about creative spaces, so we would host, maybe as an organization, a homework club or do something like that online, but that's definitely something that I'm sure our other partnering organizations do or are they doing right now or might want to think of doing as a support for youth. Any questions on that from some of our community partners? Because maybe there are things going on in our community already that we don't necessarily know about, but there could be some of these spaces. Like, are there any homework clubs, peer mentor clubs going on that we might not know about? No? Okay, that seems like then we have some work to do, guys. Yeah, team. Oh no, Jen, there you go.
So I represent the Halton Hills community up in the north of Halton, and I know our library is looking at. They've been consulting with us around what youth may need to support their learning remotely. Well, in school and remotely. So I think there's more to come there. I run youth centers in Georgetown and Acton, and we're looking at maybe designating some time during our after school hours as like quiet study sessions or spots for homework help or homework gathering together in a safe manner. We are social distancing and following all the protocols as well. But yeah, that's something that we're trying to do. And our biggest thing is we're going to ask the youth what they want. So I think once we get into school and we kind of navigate how you're feeling and maybe some areas that you need some support, that's where we're going to start looking at how we can help out. So I encourage all the youth to advocate as much as you can for that support if needed.
Right, thank you. And thank you for saying that word, the advocacy piece, right? That's something that I think our Creative Spaces group could do as well, the advocacy piece. What do youth need? And not just the youth in this group, but also finding ways to connect with other youth in the community. What do you need from us as your adult allies and community partners? Great. I do have a comment coming in here from Fatima. Online school will be really different since the school board said that you learn with kids from different schools. So I feel like students would be distant from teachers and students they normally interact with. So having some sort of online club would help students feel more connected. Thank you for that comment, Fatima. Okay, we're going to move on to question 3. And I think Faith, you have that question.
Yes, indeed. The question is, what concerns do you have with your child going back to school? Now, of course, this question is directed towards parents.
I just want to make sure we're including the parents. And I know we like to listen as adults as well, but I know that our youth are really interested in what parents have to say as well. So yeah, what concerns do you have with your child going back to school? So I'll go first as a parent. Like I was saying, like my kids aren't going back to school, but yeah, my concern would be, how do I manage their online learning as a parent when I'm at my computer all day? I can barely manage. It's really hard. It's really hard. I can barely manage keeping track of what they're doing, keeping them on track, what we're doing. We try to do whiteboards every day. So I do like a ticky box. My daughter is 9 and my son is 11. So we would try just even with chores. What do you do each day with your chores? I've been giving them some of my own Google Classroom assignments. I'm sure they love that, right? I mean, I'm such a fun parent, but just to keep them going because they missed a lot of that learning, right? Due to the situation back in spring. So making sure that they're doing some of your math work, or you're doing some, and they're, for the most part, they're pretty good at ticking off their whiteboard, but sometimes it's just really hard. And sometimes I focused on their iPad a lot of the time as well. There was a moment where my daughter was spending almost 4 to 5 hours on her iPad, and it was really hard for me to monitor that. I've now had to physically take away her phone, her iPad, and say, this is the time that you can use that. But then find something else to do that's not on a screen. So I'm just wondering, I'm just sharing that as a fellow parent. Hello, welcome to those who have joined us for our back to school COVID conversation. So we're asking a question right now directly to the parents about what concerns we have as parents with our child going back to school. And I was just sharing some of my own experiences with online learning. Now, my children are not going back to school in person. So I'm wondering if there's a parent, or if you know of parents who are sending their kids back to school, and some of the concerns perhaps around that. And again, feel free to raise your blue raise hand participant button, or you can type your comment in the chat box if you're more comfortable with that.
Aiden, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Siobhan, I'm just wondering about, you said you're not planning to send your kids back to school in person.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in elementary school then?
Yeah, so with elementary school, right now it seems we do have that option of sending our kids back to school in person or 100% online for a semester or part of the semester. So we've decided to keep our children online schooling until the end of the first semester, which is end of January. Now, I'm not sure if they have, I don't think they have a hybrid option in elementary, at least, but it keeps changing, right? So I'm trying to, as a parent, do you find that it keeps shifting back and forth, so it's hard to keep up?
The one thing I want to say is about the hybrid option. I'm pretty sure there is a hybrid option, and I believe, at least for the school I'm going to, pretty sure that's one of the only options. So at least the one where I'm going, how it's going to work is we're going to spend 2 days at school, and then I believe 3 days on online schooling. And then the next week, we're going to spend 3 days at school. And then, the next day, we're going to spend 3 days on online schooling and 2 days at school. So at least that's how the last time I heard it's going to work. But again, I may be wrong.
That would be good. And is that for like secondary school, Faith?
I believe it's for elementary.
Elementary. Okay, so maybe different towns are doing different things. Yeah. Any other comments from the parents before we move on? Oh, Heather, thank you. You have a comment. Heather says, I'm worried how student voices will be heard by their teachers and school staff, especially with the fully online model. It's a really good, it's a valid concern. Does anyone share that same concern? You can do a thumbs up reaction button too. I like this thumbs up. Yeah, so you have a few.
I know with a lot of my classes, a lot of things that makes them enjoyable is like the relationship you have with the teachers. So I feel like that's going to be really difficult online.
Yeah. Like how to keep kids or youth engaged online all day.
Yeah, like I feel like interacting online is definitely not the same as interacting in person. I think it's hard to build relationships online. So I think it's going to be very strange and very weird for students to communicate or interact with their teachers or other school staff, or even people from, or like their peers or students. So it's going to be very different.
Yeah, for sure, right? So just navigating. Any other comments before we move on to our next question?
And sorry, another thing that I noticed was I had a friend and she was already a bit like nervous asking the teacher questions, and she found that actually doing it online actually would amplify that. And I completely understand it. It makes you feel more, I'd almost like to say you're bothering the teacher. I know that's not true and false, but you could find.
Yeah, so I'm hearing the concern that you feel like you're bothering the teacher when you're online. You're asking, is that what you mean?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, it is different really when we're trying to participate online and even trying to raise our blue hand feature, right? Because it's weird, right? Because at least when you're in person, you can get visual cues. You can go like, oh yeah, I have a suggestion. But if you're shy in person to begin with, how does that affect you when you're online learning? Now, is there anybody who may be a little shy in person, but they found that perhaps going online has boosted their confidence? Is there like the opposite to that? Has anyone experienced?
I personally found it did the opposite, personally.
Like opposite in terms of boosting your confidence or kind of lowering your confidence?
I wouldn't say that it lowered my confidence, but I'd just like to say it made me quite a bit more shy online personally. But that could just be a personal, not preference, but just, yeah, I don't quite know what else to say, sorry.
No, that makes sense. That's an interesting point, right? Because sometimes like we might think, oh, it's easier to speak online, right? Because we're not really in person, but that might not necessarily be the case. Okay, definitely good discussion. For the sake of time, I'm going to turn the next question over to Lucy. Lucy, now I know you had, I'm wondering if you could ask the question about school spirit. Do you have that one up right now? The backup?
Yes,
Okay,
the backup.
Yeah.
So, question 4 is: do you have ideas for increasing your school spirit and sense of belonging in this new school environment? Examples like T-shirt day, Terry Fox run.
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, so I think we were talking a little bit more about when you were in person and school, well, my kids, they called it spirit days at my kids' schools. I'm not sure if they call it the same thing at other schools, but just increasing that feeling of connectedness at school spirit, school team. But if everyone's kind of broken up, some of us are doing it online here, some are in person, some are hybrid. How do we feel we can keep that sense of school spirit or belonging, or can we?
I think like even though it is something that's like super important and it really builds a community, a lot of people aren't really worried about it right now because a lot of people are thinking it's not their number one concern. Like they want the education, but it's actually really important in helping build that school community.
Thanks for sharing, Victoria. So I'm hearing that might not be a priority necessarily to have a school spirit or a school team. That's understandable. We're talking about engagement too. How do we engage students online, right? So if we're feeling that, I'm hearing also that there's a level of disconnectedness, maybe decreased confidence, sharing, speaking when we're online. So do you think, can we foresee maybe that, is that a possibility that could be something that maybe schools want to consider doing to further engage their students to, feel more connected, increase their confidence, even if they're online? I see a blue hand from Aiden.
Aiden, would you like to go?
Yeah. Oh, on the topic of being connected, I'm just wondering, is anyone's school doing extracurriculars at all?
Good question.
I am unsure.
Or do we just not know?
For some of the clubs that I'm a leader in, the teacher advisor told us that they got a document from the HDSB saying that clubs cannot be happening in person or something along those lines, but we decided we would host it virtually. So that like we'll be using Google Classroom or Brightspace, and we'll be having like video calls to do the club. So it's going to be a bit, I know some schools are like maybe might not host clubs, but I know my school is continuing on with clubs just in a virtual setting.
Yep, that makes sense that they would continue online.
I'll be interested to see how clubs such as, for example, at our school we have a chess club, to see how those ones will continue on in the future. And again, there may not be clubs to begin with, but as time goes farther on, if this does continue for a large period of time, it may become a bit more, I wouldn't say a priority, but I think it may become more maybe noticeable, and they may decide to do something about it. So we'll see how it goes.
Chess is something you can do online though. Like you can, there are like apps for that. So maybe there's a good website where you can host a lot of games.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing like websites for hosting games. I think this ties back into Armand's question as well, a little before, where you were talking about sports clubs too. Is that correct, Armand? Yeah.
Hi, yes, just wondering what that's going to look like. If there will be sports, will there be practices but no games? And just how these things have been affected by COVID.
So I'm hearing like from Tanvi that they're not necessarily sports right now. Has anyone else heard from their school about any sports? Or I'm thinking that's a no. Oh, there's Tina, you have your hand up. And Michelle said no sports. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think OFSA, like the Ontario school sports thing, said that unfortunately no sports will be running this year. I'm not sure if they mean this calendar year or this school year, but at least for the next couple months, no sports.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If I can just quickly share, I know this is not necessarily something that the school board is initiating, but as of September the 8th, a lot of the facilities, the community centers of the town is going to be resuming slowly for like recreational activities. There's obviously a lot of physical distancing requirements. You have to like pre-register, but knowing that there's probably going to be a void with regards to people just participating in recreation or leisure activities. So that is going to be opening in conjunction with, after Labor Day. So keep an eye out for that. And I would love to hear some feedback from you guys in terms of like what can you expect, right? Because any kind of activity that requires physical interaction between participants is probably not going to be offered, but like things like tennis or badminton or things that are not maybe doesn't require as much interaction. So if you guys have any suggestions, anything you want to see happen at the community centers, just let me know, and we'll try our best to see if that is something that we can make happen.
Great, thanks for that, Nabil. So again, yeah, it sounds like where the community is looking for feedback from youth about what do you guys need, and how is that achievable? What's realistic and achievable in this type of an environment? Thanks. Anything else about extracurricular activities? Going back, even with the parents, some concerns about extracurricular activities. For example, my son, he's really into basketball, so he was so looking forward to getting into grade 7, joining the basketball team. That was one of the reasons he was a little upset that I was holding him back from going back to school in person, because he thought, well, I'm going to miss the basketball team. That's not fair. But it's hard to tell him. I don't even know if there's going to be a basketball team this year. So I'm wondering if parents have had any similar experiences. Okay. Okay, I guess not. Well, yeah. So I mean, really, with me, my solution was just getting a basketball net outside. That's been really his saving grace during the pandemic, just to have something to play with, to be active. When I mean, things have opened up a little bit more during the summer months, but we don't know, right? With the fall, the winter, what that's going to look like. In winter, it's bad weather anyway, but still, we don't know. So yeah, finding ways to keep active when we can't necessarily have access to all of these things. Great, good stuff. Okay, I'm going to give our last question then to Faith. And Faith, do you mind asking, just because we talked about extracurricular already, would you mind doing backup question B? She's still on.
Hi, I'm on.
I didn't
Is
see
it numbered?
It's the one that says, it's about the
Okay, I see it now. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Can you share some advice that would ease the experiments? Sorry. Can you share some advice that would ease the experience for someone new to the school? So for grade 9 transfer students, if they've just moved from a different place or anything like that?
Right, so I think this question is targeted more towards our youth, because usually in high school there would be a big grade 9 orientation. Well, I've participated in some of those as a community partner, but obviously things are a little different this year. I know that sometimes when we have those grade 9 orientations, we have older students who help the grade 9s transition into the year, but now that looks a little different too. So I'm wondering if the youth have any thoughts about what would you say to a grade 9 student transitioning into high school this year, with this new setup, what it looks like?
I know that this isn't quite on the exact same topic, but I do have a friend who is going to be moving to a new school during this time, so I would appreciate if anyone has any advice, if I could help them with anything.
I think it's kind of hard for a lot of youth to even give advice, because this is a very new setup for us. So we don't even really know what to expect. But some advice that I would give is just to try your best and work hard in general, and like in everything that you do, because it's a great way to just go out there and try all these different things, and also see if you can find something that you really enjoy. So, in all your classes and in extracurriculars, I think it's just good to, especially for like grade 9s, to try out a bunch of new stuff and constantly just keep trying out new stuff and see what did they enjoy and focus on that too.
Thank you, Tanvi.
Tina, would you like to go?
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of schools are still doing like sort of link crew grade 9 orientations, but obviously they're online. So I guess my advice would just be to go to them. Go to the optional sort of, get to meet your classmates sort of things. Because especially right now, even I'm guilty of this. When things are online, I'm sort of like, oh, do I really want to go? I could just, sleep in, I could take a nap, I could do whatever. But my advice would just be to sort of be consistent with showing up to your virtual classes and sort of these optional orientation things, because it's really a great opportunity to get to meet some of your peers, even like older students. I know that I would definitely be happy if a younger student like DM me on Instagram. Obviously now everything is virtual, or even came up to me in the hallways just to ask a question. Like, just don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself, because everybody's been in that boat before.
Another thing that may be useful is remember that all of us need to be patient with each other, no matter how big or small the question. Just like how Tina said, it's always good to go to each other.
Great, I like that motivation. Great, I know that this is some really good conversation. I really appreciate the feedback. I think that Michelle had something to share with us.
Yeah,
and you're from CanGap, Michelle, right?
I am.
Can you explain a little bit about that organization, just very briefly, like a snapshot, and then what you'd like to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I run the Canadian Gap Year Association. So I work full time with young people who are stepping out of formal education. So this is a really familiar space to me where young people are navigating uncertainty and being put into new situations that's unfamiliar to them. So that's what I do from like an employment standpoint, but and it plays into what I want to say to all of you. I spend a lot of my time working with the post-secondary, so with the colleges and universities. So if you are stressed out about what this is going to do to your future prospects, please know that they are very aware that you are going through unprecedented times, and that they will be very, very understanding of the situation. They are not looking at you the same way they are looking at graduates of previous years. They are adapting their systems, they are adapting everything, and they understand where you're coming from. So I want you to give yourself permission to see this as an opportunity to practice some self-forgiveness and some grace, and give yourself permission to spend this time learning resilience, learning how to be creative, learning self-motivation. And those are the things that are going to help you to be successful this year and in future years. And it's not necessarily about the number on the paper. I really just want to hammer that home and give you permission as like a grown-up with like a job that deals in this space, that you are going to be okay, and you need to just give yourself that space to do your best, and your best might look different than it has in previous years, and that's okay. Everybody is rooting for you. Everybody is in uncertain terms, and your grades this year will come with a little asterisk being like, remember that year where everything was all messed up and nobody knew anything was going on? They're going to look at your grades with that asterisk, and they're going to take that into account. So the priority should be on your mental health, and trying to stay connected with other people. We're human beings, and the grades and the schoolwork can be there as a tool to help keep us on track, but it's not necessarily about learning how to factor polynomials or balance chemical equations or do long division whatever stage you're at. There is so much more growth and learning that you can pull out of this year. So I love you guys. I think you're doing amazing things. You guys are doing things beyond what anybody your age ever thought possible. And I just know that everybody is rooting for you and wanting you to succeed.
Thank you, Michelle. Just for the motivational, you have a clap from Tina. So thank you. I think,
and if you need any more support or you want to chat through things, like I'm not converting you to going on a gap year. I just really appreciate and respect what you're going through. And if you need somebody to talk to and you need that message told to you again, don't hesitate to reach out.
And is there a way, Michelle, would you be able to type just the link to your website in the chat box, just in case anyone wants to connect with you after today?
Of course.
Great.
I'll give you my email as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. And if you need me to tell that to your parents as well, I'm happy to have that conversation too.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Michelle. As you'll see, we're nearing the end of our session today, but there are a few more other little pieces. Firstly, I want to thank the youth for hosting today. The youth thought of these questions themselves, so this was not questions that adults came up with. This was something that youth wanted to talk about and know. So thank you so much, especially to our hosts, Tanvi, Victoria, Masha, Ashley, Lucy, and Faith. That's amazing what you guys did today, and thank you for stepping up and leading this conversation. For parents today, and just if you know of parents that you want to pass information on to, I've connected you to a link called the Family Assets. Not sure if everybody knows what the Family Assets are, but it's just a resource by Search Institute about some of the things we can do as parents and as families to support the mental health and the well-being of our youth and our students at home. So I encourage you to look at that link, that resource link. And I'm also going to provide a link to a very, very quick and brief survey today for you. That it only should take about a minute or so. It's multiple choice, made it really short because this is our first space that we held on this topic. So it'd be helpful for us to know, is this type of a space needed, an ongoing space needed in the future, and what that might look like. And I think, and that will help us direct us on what in our planning for future spaces on this topic. So I'll put that link, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley.
Wow, all the conversations were so great today, guys. Thank you so much for all your feedback. Thank you for joining us for our back to school COVID conversations. We really appreciate your participation, and we hope that this conversation has given everyone a chance to feel a little bit more connected and know that we're not alone. We hope that this isn't our last conversation, and we'd really like to get your feedback and ideas for future conversations on this topic. We are now posting a link to our short survey in the chat box. Please click on the link now and answer some very quick questions. This will help us to know what you'd like to see in a future event like this. You are very welcome to leave our Zoom meeting now, or you are very welcome to stay online for a few more minutes to chat if you'd like. Thanks again, and good luck with back to school.